Welcome, everybody. Episode 37 of Christian Geeks Classic Rockcast. And once again, today we have another special episode, but this time it's a good special episode because we have the very alive and the very well Paul Q-Pek on the other line with us. How you doing, Paul?
Doing great, Steve. How are you?
Very good. And of course, we got Britt Mooney on the other line as well.
What's up, everybody?
So it probably goes without saying for our audience, but Paul Q-Pek is, among many other things, known especially to our contingent as the guitarist of One Bad Pig. And so our last episode 36, we talked through the debut sort of like, I guess I wouldn't call it major label, but sort of semi-major label Christian album from One Bad Pig called Smash. So I guess just kind of getting started, Paul, tell us kind of your background, your musical background, and then how that kind of led to you connecting with the guys in the band and One Bad Pig and creating that particular band, because the memory of One Bad Pig is probably seared in all of our memories because of
it's sizzled
everything you guys were to. Yeah, everything you guys were to the Christian music industry back then. It's unforgettable. So,
yep.
Thanks. Well, to make a long story not too long, I will say that, I grew up in the church, and so was very familiar with church music. Now, this is the 70s, basically. And then in 78, I was a freshman in high school, and it was a Christian high school. And an upperclassman gave me a ride home one time, and he had some music playing in his car. And I said, "What is that?" He said, "That's Christian music." I said, "That's Christian music?" Because it sounded kind of cool. And actually, it was the group The Imperials.
Wow.
And it was their Sail On album, which is the first album that Russ Taff was on.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this tune called Water Grave on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool. And I thought, man, that's Christian music. I said, is there more like that? Because I grew up in a church, but I never heard contemporary Christian music at all. I hadn't been exposed to it. And so he said, yeah, there's this, Christian bookstore, yada, yada, yada. So that became an obsession with me after that, hanging out at the Christian bookstore, looking at all the albums, seeing what looked cool, and buying the albums based on how cool they looked, And soon I was into Res Band and Sweet Comfort Band and, all that fun stuff. And so then I started finding out about concerts. And this was I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, a little town called Vallejo. And a lot of Christian artists came through the Bay Area and did concerts. And I got to see a lot of these artists live. And it just really stoked in me, what I wanted to do with my life, combine my love for God with my love for music, And so when I was 16, I ended up traveling with a group called the Continental Singers, which was just a bunch of young people that were together in a kind of a choir setting with like a big band setting.
And I remember the Continentals.
Yeah, I toured in the summers of 80 and 81. I was 16 and 17. And I was a singer. I sang in the choir. But I met a guy named Maury Milliken who played bass on both those tours. He lived in Austin, Texas. And so after I was done with the Continentals, I decided to form a band in Vallejo there called Front Runner. And we were like kind of a Christian rock, Christian metal type group. And we were only together for about a year. And so when we broke up, I was still in contact with my friend Maury in Austin. He said, man, he said, why don't you come to Austin? He said, I'm in this band called Pavilion, and I know they'd love to have you in the band, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And so with my parents' blessing, I moved out to Austin in 83 and just started, you know, doing all kinds of different Christian music projects and bands and things. And we were just excited and putting stuff together. And then in the summer of 85, I went with some friends of mine to Cornerstone Festival up in the Chicago area. This was their second year they had it. They did 84 was the debut year of Cornerstone. So I went in the summer of 85 and on our drive up to Chicago, we stopped in St. Louis for lunch at a Pizza Hut, and they were doing a little promotion with a local rock station called KSHE, KSHE. And it was called the Power Pig. It was the name of the station. And they had this logo of this tough looking pig with a guitar slung over its shoulder. And Pizza Hut was selling these little wraparound shades, these cool looking glasses, sunglasses that had the KSHE logo. I had this pig on it. And so, a friend of mine who ended up being the lead singer for One Bad Pig, Kerry Womack, otherwise known as Kosher, he said, man, that's One Bad Pig. And I said, One Bad Pig, that sounds like the name of a punk band. And so that became kind of a running joke on this little trip up to Chicago. And throughout the whole festival and then all the way back, we were just talking about this mythical band called One Bad Pig, just how funny we thought that was. But then actually at Cornerstone, we got to see some of our favorite bands and then exposed to some bands we hadn't heard of. And we got to see Undercover and Vector and the 77s and the Choir. And I believe also Saint was there and Messiah Prophet.
Oh, wow.
Of course, Red Band. You know, and so all these, it was just the mecca for, you know, cool Christian music. And we came back just jazzed about that. And coming up at the end of that summer, there was going to be in Austin a Labor Day Christian Music Festival, which was all local acts. And I had my own band called the Paul Q-Pek Band. And that was going to be our first concert, was at this little festival. And so me and Carrie and a couple other guys, we had been joking about One Bad Pig, and it was the joke that wouldn't die. You know, we just kind of kept saying it. And so we thought, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if we got some guys together and we called ourselves One Bad Pig at this festival, and we got up and did like an Undercover song and an Altar Boys song and just, you know, just looked wild and played fast and had fun, you know. We said, yeah, let's do it, you know. And so we did it as a one-time joke, you know. Now, the thing is that Kerry, our lead singer, he was a pastor at the time. You know, he was young. He was only like 23, 24. But he was a pastor of a very small Baptist church in Austin. And so he did a little preaching from the stage. But since we were a punk band, you know, and dressed up kind of wild, he was doing more of kind of a street preaching vibe and kind of a, you know, just a real aggressive kind of punk, you know, truth preaching. And so we did, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 songs. They were really fast, really quick. We actually smashed a guitar also, a portent of things to come years later. And so in 85, Labor Day, that was our first gig. And we thought at the time our only gig, because it was just a spoof. It was basically a novelty thing that was a one-time thing. And we even made up T-shirts to sell we could only afford to make 24 shirts. So we had 24 shirts, and the place that we played was called Zilker Park, an outdoor thing. And so on this shirt, it had a picture of that pig from the Keishi logo, although we kind of punked it up a little bit more, gave it a mohawk, and we said, it said One Bad Pig on the shirt, and it said Zilker Tour 1985, because we thought this is our only gig, so we'll have fun with it. Of course, we didn't know if anyone would buy the shirts. Of course, they sold out like that. Everybody wanted one. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. And afterwards, there were actually some people that came up and said, when are you guys playing again? We thought, well, we hadn't really planned on playing again. And then we even had somebody that came up and said, what you guys did was anointed. We're just like, really? It's like, yeah, God could really use this, what you guys are doing. We're like, huh. Well, so we basically just prayed about it and said, God, if you want us to keep going, we will. Just open the doors, So actually our next gig was like a month and a half later. It was in Austin, and we opened for Undercover, who was touring at the time. And they were some of our heroes, the God Rules album and all that,
Mm-hmm.
And we just thought, oh my gosh, we got to open for them for our second gig. And so we just kind of kept going, and we played a lot of, just clubs, secular clubs, mostly in Austin, some in Dallas, some in Houston. We played in San Antonio. And we played some church things too, and some coffee house settings that would allow us to. But we kind of we would run into opposition several places that we went. Christian places, we were too wild, too punky, and dressed too weird. And in some of the clubs, our message, even though the music was punk rock, the message was too upfront for some of the secular clubs. They didn't want, us, saying the type of things we're saying with our music. And so we found that we were banned in a lot of places. And so when we did our first original kind of EP album in 1986, we recorded 6 songs just on our own. And we called it One Bad Pig, a Christian Band, BANNED. And that was the name of that EP, And so anyway, off the kind of the coattails of that EP, and we sent it around. We definitely sent it to Cornerstone, because we thought that's the place that accepts all these radical people and radical music. And sure enough, we got to play at Cornerstone Festival without being on a label. We got to play in 1986 up there, and it was just incredible. It was a dream come true, And so I think we had 250 of those albums there at the festival, and they all sold out super quick. We sold them for $5, and so they all sold super quick. And so the word kind of started getting out here and there about what we were doing, And so through the next few years, we played here and there, mostly secular clubs, but some, what you would call Christian gigs or Christian sponsored things. But then in 1989, or this may have been 88, maybe late 88, the band Whiteheart was coming through town on tour. And so, and they're, one of the members of Whiteheart, Billy Smiley, was known at the time as a producer. He had produced Margaret Becker. He had produced Jeff Moore in the Distance. And we thought, maybe we can get this guy a little tape, And so we gave him a tape, which was essentially what our 6-song EP was, And we gave him those songs. And then he listened to them in his bus or something, and kind of got back to us later that night at the gig and said, "Hey, I want to take you guys out to eat real quick, and I want to talk to you guys." So we were just excited. We thought, "Oh my gosh, Billy Smiley wants to have dinner with us." So we went out to dinner with him, and he basically said, he said, I was looking for a band to produce, a Christian rock band. And he said, I was really looking for the next Christian Bon Jovi. He said, you guys are definitely not that. And I said, no, that's not what we do, But he said, there's something here. He said, there's something here. It's cool. It's catchy. And he says, it kind of makes me laugh too, he said, which was a good thing, And so he said, pray about it, but I would love to bring you guys up to Nashville and record you guys at a studio up there on spec, meaning we wouldn't have a record deal yet, but he would use his recordings and his influence and his contacts to shop us around and try to get us a deal. So, it didn't take us too long to pray about that. It was like, yes, we'll do it. This is exciting. Yes, got it. So we went up to Nashville, and he had access to Warner Brothers Studios up there. So we just thought, oh my gosh, we've made the big time, So we went up there and we recorded 7 songs, and those 7 songs are on the Smash album. We recorded those, and we did pretty much the basic stuff on them. I mean, we did all, the guitars, the drums, the bass. We did the lead vocals, and some background vocals. But then, we were only up in Nashville a few days. And then we came back home to our regular jobs and everything. And Billy brought some of his friends in, which was, the lead singer, Whiteheart, Rick Florian. He brought in David Mullen. He brought in Gordon Kennedy, the guitarist of Whiteheart. And he wanted to replace some of the drums. So he brought in Chris McHugh of Whiteheart. He just brought his friends in. And they messed around on some of the tracks too. And so he kind of got rough mixes going of those 7 songs. And he started shopping them around to Christian music labels. And of course he hit some of the usual suspects that we thought would be more receptive to what we do. Frontline was one of the ones that he hit up, which was based in Southern Cal there. And we thought for sure, because Frontline had some of our favorite artists on it, Altar Boys and Krumbacher and all these cool bands. And we thought for sure they would love this and get it and want to go with it, but they passed. And he played it for some other labels. He even, he went swinging for the fences with Word and with Sparrow, which Whiteheart was on Sparrow at the time. And, and Benson and, these different labels, and everybody passed on it. Nobody, wanted to put out a group called One Bad Pig. They just thought this is not what we want to do, not what we want to be associated with. So he ended up basically calling in a favor. Billy, when he went to college, his roommate was a guy named Ray Nenow. And Ray Nenow was the president and owner of Refuge Records. And I think they were based, let's see, I've got the Smash album here. I'm looking on the back here. Pure Metal Records, Division of Refuge. Yeah, Allentown, Pennsylvania is where they were out of. And so he talked to his friend, Ray, and said, Ray, I got this band. It's a punk metal thing. And he says, I just, I need somebody to put this thing out. And Ray, basically as a favor to Billy, said, okay, I'll do it. Just sight unseen, not even hearing the stuff. He just trusted his friend, basically, did him a favor. And so we signed to Refuge Records. We didn't go to Pennsylvania or anything or meet any of the people at the record company. It was all kind of done through Billy and just, through the mail, sending stuff and phone calls and things. But we signed with Refuge, and they had a division called Pure Metal, which ended up putting out Bride and White Cross and several other kind of Christian metal bands. And so they were going to put us on Pure Metal, this division of Refuge. So Billy called us back up to Nashville. We got into another studio, and we recorded 5 more songs to put on the album. And then, Refuge put the album out. One of the things was a lot of the artwork on the Pure Metal releases looked really gothic. There was a band called Rosanna's Raiders, a band called Light Force and Leviticus.
Light Force.
Yeah.
Hey,
I loved Light Force.
I have that record.
Yeah. And they and even Bride's covers of the early Bride albums, everything looked kind of real medieval and gothic and, and stuff. And we, at the time, the Pig, we kind of started out as kind of hardcore-ish punk and real sparse sounding and dressing in real punky street clothes things. But over time, we started, developing some fun and more funny stuff. And our image, especially mine with the band, was a bit more of a clown, a bit more of a fun, just nutty type of deal. And there was a lot of humor kind of in what we did. And some of the songs we were writing were and the lyrics were kind of leaning that way. The music was leaning more that way. And so it was kind of a combination of the hardcore stuff, the rock stuff, and then just stuff that was kind of silly. And so we were embracing that. So we didn't want really a gothic image on the cover. And so we kind of worked with Refuge and told them kind of what we wanted. And I remember there was an album that had come out at the time by In Excess, the band In Excess from Australia. And it was called Kick.
Yeah, that's classic.
And they had a skateboard on the album. It was a white album, but they had images kind of some of the members of the band, like the lead singer's head was real big. And then some of the guys were in the background. Some of the guys weren't even on the cover. It was real sparse, but it was white and it was fun and sparse and stuff. So using that as a bit of a template, we had just that white album cover with the 4 of us on it and just kind of looking fun. Carrie is screaming on it and looking kind of scary. I'm just soaring through the air on a skateboard with my guitar, looking like fun. Our drummer, Phil.
You've got watches on your guitar too.
Yeah. Those were, at the time, this brand of watches called Swatch had come out, and they were these rubber kind of weird, colorful looking watches. And that was a last minute kind of idea. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I put these different watches, colored watches on my guitar neck? It meant nothing. It was nothing. I don't do that normally. And it was just a one-time weird thing. But there you go. They're on there just to be nutty and, make people wonder, what the heck is that? And so, and our drummer, Philip, he came to the photo shoot with these pants that he had made. He took black jeans, and he painted or stenciled these pink pigs on them. And so he's wearing those pig pants, on the cover. And it just made everything, we looked zany, wild, zany, and fun. And so that was the thing, is that when this album came out, it stood out from a lot of the other Pure Metal releases. Just the cover alone looked like a barrel of laughs and a lot of fun, And so that was kind of the image we were going with and the sound we were going with. And that's how the album came to be.
So at what point in there did you start learning how to play the guitar? So you were singing with the group, but then like you were involved in all these other projects. Was it always the guitar? Were you singing in some or doing different instruments?
Yeah, it was mostly guitar and singing. At that point, I learned to play. I always loved music from an early age. I was always banging on things as a toddler. So my parents gave me a cheapo Sears, $25 drum set when I was a little kid. I quickly smashed it to pieces, but it was fun. And in fourth grade, I remember in band choosing the trumpet as my instrument. So I played trumpet all through school. And my parents had me take piano lessons from age 6 to age 12. So I took piano and learned how to read music that way. And then my older sister, she had a classical guitar. She would play folk music and stuff, And then when I was about 12 or 13, I think she bought an acoustic guitar, a steel string guitar. Classicals are nylon string. And so she thought, well, I won't need my classical anymore. I've got this acoustic. She should have held on to it, but she gave it to me. She said, do you want this? And I was like, sure. So my first guitar was a classical guitar. And I kind of taught myself, taught myself chords and stuff. And then one day when I discovered bar chords, I was off and running, rock and roll, So in high school, I bought an electric guitar and I bought a bass guitar and, just started, messing around with that. So yeah, when I formed Front Runner when I was 18, I was definitely playing guitar at that point. I wasn't the greatest lead guitarist, but I could play rhythm pretty well. I could fake it pretty well. It sounded like music what I was playing. So I was fooling a lot of people. So anyway, that's how I kind of started with guitar.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting. You went from, you got the pure metal record deal, and then the next album actually was back on Myrrh, which is kind of, known for, contemporary
Amy
Christian
Grant,
powerhouse.
Yeah. Randy Stonehill, Imperials, and all that were on Myrrh at one time. Oh yeah.
So was the first album like? I mean, I'm assuming it was successful enough to garner the attention of these other labels at that point.
Yes. Well, the album did okay. It didn't set the world on fire or anything, but it, apparently it at least it was in all the Christian bookstores,
Right.
And that cover alone really stood out. And so, and we were invited back to Cornerstone again in the summer of '89 on the strength of the Smash album. And we got to play a lot of other, festivals, and just a lot more gigging opportunity came up as this thing was, nationwide and really worldwide. Refuge had signed world distribution deals in over in Europe and in South Africa, and I think they had some distribution in South America too, because we started getting letters from all over the world. And actually we played at Greenbelt Festival in England in the summer of '89. And that was thanks to Refuge and also thanks to White Cross. Because White Cross really set the world on fire with their first record. A lot of people loved it, and it sold really well, and they were, doing great. And they were scheduled to play the Greenbelt Festival in England, summer of '89, and with I think a week before the festival or a week and a half before the festival, they had to pull out for some reason. I don't know what reason, but they had to cancel. And Refuge called us up and said, would you like to take White Cross's slot in England? And it was like a week away. None of us had passports. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? And they said, well, they said, we'll pay for your plane flights. We'll pay for expedited passports, which was a thing. I didn't know it was a thing. Mm-hmm. But if you pay enough money, you can get a passport in 2 days.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so we did that. And the next thing you do, a week later, we were on a plane to England.
Wow.
It was crazy. And the thing is that they, as I say, Refuge had distribution over there. So our album was over there, the Smash album. And of course, we brought some more and some T-shirts and everything to sell there. And we did the gig there. It went great. And afterwards, it was funny because there was this tent that they used for some of the bands and artists to sit down after they had played, to come in, sit down at these tables, and the kids would line up and pass by you, and you would sign their stuff, sign pictures or whatever, to get autographs, So they had a certain time they wanted us there and all this. So after we played, there was this huge line at this tent where we were supposed to go and sign autographs. And there was someone in there who'd been in there for a little while, and he had been signing for a while. And basically they were going to remove him and put us in. Well, that guy was Larry Norman.
Oh, wow.
The godfather of Christian rock. And we were all big Larry Norman fans, especially our lead singer, Carrie, who had all of Larry's albums. And he was hearing that they were going to kick him out, basically, so we could sit down and these kids could get their stuff signed. And Carrie was just beside himself going, oh my gosh, they're going to kick Larry Norman out and we're going to take his place. He couldn't believe it. But anyway, Larry was very, very gracious. And so when we sat down and signed all these kids' stuff, each one that passed by, we thought they used the same word to describe our music and our set. And this was a word that was used in England all the time. The word is brilliant. They said brilliant, every one of them, How'd you like it? Oh, I thought it was brilliant, actually. They all said brilliant, That was the word back then for them. So anyway, but that was just unbelievably cool experience, And that happened because of Refuge and their distribution there and their relationship with the Greenbelt Festival. And thanks to White Cross, canceling. But so we played, Cornerstone that summer also, and Greenbelt and these other festivals. And there were people from other labels, unbeknownst to us, that were spying on us, basically, because you have representatives at all these festivals from other labels that are there to support their bands, but they're also checking out the other bands. And so there were a couple of guys who worked at Myrrh at the time. One was named Mark Maxwell, who was an A&R guy, artist and repertoire guy, and a guy named Chris Hauser, who was a radio promotions guy. So they worked at Myrrh, and unbeknownst to us, they were big One Bad Pig fans. They loved us. They thought what we did was great, and they started talking to us, And the thing is that they wanted to sign some more radical stuff, but Mark Maxwell had wanted to sign some more metal bands, but they had to sign, this Christian Bon Jovi thing first. They had to sign a Striper, White Cross-ish thing first. And so they were looking at this band in LA called Holy Soldier. And they said, we've got to get them under contract first and work with them. But said, after that's all in place, we'd love to work with you guys, blah, blah, blah. Well, it just so happened that Refuge Records was beginning to have financial issues, And I think they had overextended themselves or something, signed too many artists, or I don't know what, but something happened, and they were sending out letters to their artists saying that we were going to have trouble, paying your royalties this quarter. And, and the letters were kind of vague, but it almost seemed like they were saying, if you feel like you need to leave our label, then, we're not going to stop you, kind of thing. And so we thought, does this really mean what we think it means? That we can just walk or something, And so, because we had, heard about this interest from Murr, and that was exciting. Of course, we were under contract, So we hired a lawyer who was a friend of ours in Austin. He looked at the stuff and he thought, well, let me send them a letter. So he sent them a letter. And of course, then Refuge was kind of going, I don't know if we're going to let you guys go. That doesn't really mean what it means. And so Murr kind of lawyers started going back and forth with them, and they worked out a deal. And so Refuge got a chunk of money, and I think some points on our next few albums with Murr, and we were out of the deal with Refuge, and we signed with Murr. Wow. So that was that. And our first album for Murr came out in 1990, which was Swine Flu.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. First of all, with the first album with Smash, you said yes. Billy produced it. Like, how much input did Billy have on like songwriting? Like, did he work with you guys or that? Or was it just like you guys just showed up and like basically played through your tunes the way it was and he just kind of mixed it or something?
No, he definitely had input. I mean, some of the songs went down pretty much as is. Some of these tunes we have been playing for a couple of years,
right?
Yeah. One of them, which on the Christian Band, was from the Christian Band album or EP in 1986. Actually, a couple of songs. There was a song called Six and a song called Anarchy is Prison. And we played those for him. He loved those, but he wanted to change Anarchy is Prison, and call it Godarchy, And so we were, messing around a little bit with the chorus and changing it up a bit. So the original version is on a Christian Band, Anarchy is Prison, and then Godarchy is what it kind of morphed into. And that was Billy's suggestion. Also, the song 6 became Isaiah 6, which is what it is anyway. It's based off Isaiah 6. But we had the more punky name of Six on it. And Billy said, I think we need to call it Isaiah 6. We need to let people know kind of where it's from. He was thinking of, I don't know, maybe he was thinking of parents, CCM parents, of kids and allowing them to do stuff. And then the kids being able to show them, but look, this is from the Bible, or so. I don't know what his reasoning was, but he wanted to make it somehow a bit more understandable. And so we changed the name on the album to Isaiah 6. And there were different production ideas and rhythmic ideas. We had come to him with a song we'd been playing a long time live called Frat Rats. Mm-hmm. And the verses of the song were really kind of jumpy, went dance, 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 dance. It didn't have a really rhythm, I don't know what. It was just off, and then the chorus would kick in. Frat rats and rodents, be straight ahead. But the verses are kind of, they were really jarring. And he said, and he actually used the words Led Zeppelin groove is what he said. Why don't you do a Led Zeppelin groove on the verses? Blah, blah. I said, what do you mean? And he kind of sang to us kind of what he wanted. And so we did that, and it turned out. And then the chorus would kick in with the punk and so it was kind of a funky groove kind of thing. And it was cool. We liked it. We thought, oh man, that changes the song completely and makes it cooler, you know. Then he had ideas which we were kind of like, I don't know. He had this song that he had worked on. He had kind of written. He didn't have all the lyrics written, but he had the idea for the chorus and kind of how the chords, how it would go. And it was called Kingdom Come. And it was kind of like, you know, the sound of it and the way it was going and stuff, it just didn't sound like a Pig song to us. It was like, I don't know. But this was during the first session when we went up and we were doing the stuff on spec, you know, and doing those first few songs. And he really wanted us to try this song, you know. And so we were like, okay. And Carrie wrote some lyrics for the verses. And we did it, but it was kind of like, I don't know. This sounds a bit more arena rockish than what the Pig does. And so, and then on top of that, he had, you know, as I say, Chris McHugh, the drummer for Whiteheart, Rick Florian, Gordon Garrison, this incredible, or not Gordon, what was his name?
Gordon Kennedy.
Gordon Kennedy. Yeah.
Gordon
Garrison is a sound guy in Austin. Sorry. I mean, Gordon Kennedy. Yeah. Had him come in and do this incredible lead guitar thing. And Chris McHugh with this pop in the snare drum. And then all these vocals stacked, you know, Kingdom Come. Sounded like a Whiteheart song, you know. And it was just like, I don't know. It doesn't sound like the Pig, but we thought, hey, you know, he's the producer. He's making this stuff happen for us. So we're going to go with it right now, whatever, blah, blah. It's just one song, not going to kill us, you know. So it's on there. And I think we almost never played it live. We never played Kingdom Come live. It was just in the studio. I know we tried it one time in Austin. We used to play this club called The Back Room. And I remember we tried it one time. We gave it our best shot live. And we just couldn't pull it off the way it sounded on the record. Not even close. You know, it was just like, this is just not working, you know. So we never really played it live much. And
so going back to Godarchy,
yeah.
You know, we talked about on the episode, at least for me, it seemed like you guys were intentionally pushing back against Sex Pistols, right? Anarchy in the UK. Was that part of that thought process for the original song, even though it got changed?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, and this was actually that was the first original song the Pig wrote. Anarchy is Prison, and which turned into Godarchy, but had the same lyrics and everything. So yeah, we had written that back in '85, and so. And it was, it's not just the Sex Pistols, but overall the secular punk mindset. Was anarchy, and the symbol for anarchy, you know, was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, Carrie Kosher had come up with this lyric and this idea, kind of confronting that regular punk mindset with a more spiritual mindset, and kind of coming against that. And so that's one of the ones, man, we used to do in the punk clubs, you know, and people would spit beer on us and they would throw things at us, and they were just like, wow, we really gave them something to react to, you know. So anyway, yeah, but it was just an overall, not the Sex Pistols specifically, although they had that song about anarchy, but just the overall punk mindset of it. Yeah.
Well, I would have loved to have been in a nice, relaxed coffee house when you guys show up and just start playing. I don't know. When you said you guys did coffee houses, I was like, well, usually
there's warning, you know, there's yeah. is like, the pig's going to be here, Hey, we have played in some bizarre places and weird instances. We played at a funeral one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was an older lady who was a big One Bad Pig fan, friend of the band's and all this. And she died, and one of her requests was to have us play at her funeral.
Wow.
And we did. Yep.
What song did you play?
We did 2 songs.
Brad Rats.
What did we do? No. Gosh. I know one of the songs we did was Looney Tune, believe it or not, which is on the Smash album.
Yes.
It's a crazy song, but our lead singer kind of explained it to everybody in attendance who, that this lady loved our band and kind of what we did. So he set it up real nice. But when we did our thing, we did our thing, it was at a funeral home,
Wow.
So, yeah. Crazy.
So when Ice Cream Sunday came out, which was your third full length, right?
Yes.
On Myrrh.
Yes.
The elephant in the room question is, how did you guys get connected with Johnny Cash?
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of the main questions we get asked, or that I get asked all the time. The 2 big questions are, how did you get her name? And and how on earth did you record a Johnny Cash?
It was out of the blue. I mean, really, for fans, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Now, were you doing radio? Were you doing the rock shows at that time?
Yeah.
When that came out, they came out in 91, I think. Yep. Yeah. So that was a big song for us. At the time, there was a Christian rock chart that charted radio play for Christian rock songs, and there was a Christian metal radio chart. And anyway, and there was one time there where we were number 1 with Man in Black on both charts at the same time. So that was awesome. When we were demoing up songs for the Ice Cream Sunday album and sending them to Myrrh, to our A&R guy, Mark Maxwell, he suggested one time, he said, there's this Johnny Cash tune called Man in Black. And he said, the lyrics are pretty cool. He said, I want you to look at that song, just listen to it and see if you guys can do anything with it, So we're just like, okay, Johnny Cash, whatever. All right. So we listened to the song. We thought, yeah, I think we could probably do something with it. He said, cool. He said, I bet there's a chance we might be able to get Johnny to come in and sing on it with you. And we laughed, we thought, oh, whatever. That is never going to happen in a million years. Why would that happen? That's just, pie in the sky right there. So anyway, but he said, well, no, he said, back in the 70s, when Word kind of started and the Myrrh imprint first came on, he said, Johnny did a gospel album on our label way back then or something. And he's and he's done gospel things before. He's appeared on Billy Graham crusades. And he also, Johnny likes to be known as a bit of a rebel, and he likes to be, accepted in the rock community and not just country Western. He wants to be known as, more of that type. And says, I think if we treat the song right, he might be interested in coming in and singing on it, because you guys are a Christian group and appeal to, these kids and all that. And we were like, well, I don't know. We thought it was a super long shot, but we thought, okay. So Myrrh sent Johnny or Johnny's people all this stuff about the pig, all our write-ups, all our CDs, pictures, articles, all this, and bios, and so they had this correspondence back and forth. And there was never anything definite that, hey, Johnny's going to sing on this album. It just wasn't anything definite like that. So, so the time came for us to go to Nashville for a couple of weeks and record the Ice Cream Sunday record. So we went up there, and, you know, again, we had no assurances at all that Johnny was going to record with us. We were making kind of last ditch efforts, and we had went ahead and done kind of basic tracks on it. And actually we had Carrie sing through the whole song, because we thought, well, if Johnny can't do it, at least, you know, we'll have Carrie's vocal and the whole thing, and maybe we'll put it on the album just as is, you know, just to have it be a Pig song, you know. So, you know, we had that all set to go. And then we got, and we were still communicating. Murr was still communicating, Mark was, with Johnny's people. And they actually sent Mark an invitation for the band to come out to Johnny's son, John Cash Jr. It was going to be his 21st birthday. And they were going to have it at this old roadhouse out in the middle of nowhere, you know, and all these country music people were going to be there. And it was just going to be a rave up of a night. They said, hey, come. And they said, bring your instruments. Maybe you guys can play a song or two, you know, because they were having different people just get up on the stage and sing and play, you know. So we thought, oh, man, maybe this is our big chance to meet Johnny, maybe even to sing for him. And, you know, and maybe he'll agree to do our record, whatever. So we got there to this place. It was in the middle of nowhere, and got in there. The smoke was thick, you know, the smell of beer was in the air, and and it's like, oh, and we were noticing little, you know, different people. Some people would say to us, hey, that's little Jimmy Dickens. We're like, okay. And we saw a guy with a long beard. Oh, that's such and such from the Oak Ridge Boys, you know. Oh, okay. And, you know, so we're in there milling around with all these people, and there's Johnny, you know. And so we were told we would be able to get up there and play in about 45 minutes or so. And so we're kind of waiting our turn. And then Johnny and his wife, June, they start kind of heading toward the door, and they're shaking hands and stuff and start going. And thought, oh, man, they're leaving, you know? And so, you know, Carrie, our lead singer, he actually had written a letter to Johnny that he had in his pocket, that Carrie had. And so explaining to him about the band and explaining how much of a fan he was of Johnny and all this. And so as they were leaving, Carrie got to shake his hand, and the way Carrie tells it is that Johnny just said, oh, yeah, how you doing? He said, yeah, we're that band, One Bad Pig, that we want you to come sing on our album. Oh, yeah. Oh, great. Nice to meet you. You know, and just kept going. And, and I don't think Carrie got to give him the letter, but he gave it to one of Johnny's people that was there. Hey, can you please get this to Johnny? You know, blah, blah. So anyway, we thought, oh, well, that's that. You know, there he goes. So anyway, we hung around, and we actually did play. And we played 2 songs. We had planned to play Man in Black because we thought Johnny was going to be there. We're going to play it for him. We thought, well, a lot of these people are Johnny's people anyway. We'll play it. And then we played People Cry Out from the Smash album. And what's funny is when we got up on this little stage in this club, there was like a back line of musicians, a fiddle player, a mandolin guy, you know, and a steel guitar player. And when we got up there, they said, oh, hey, guys, said, hey, you want us to sit in for you, play with you? And I told them no, because I thought, we're a band, we're self-contained. I thought, no, that's okay. Thank you very much. I missed my opportunity. I should have said yes.
Right?
Oh, my
that
gosh.
would have been hilarious. Oh, my God. That would have been epic. That would have been so funny just to see the look on their faces when we kicked off, But but I told them, no, we got this, So anyway, we did that, went back to the hotel or whatever after that, and I was just like, oh, well, that's that, The next day, Mark Maxwell gets a call and said, hey, tomorrow Johnny's going to be at such and such studio on Music Row. Have your guys there. Have the tape ready to go. Johnny wants to sing on you guys' album. We're just like, oh my gosh. So he had read the letter. He got the letter from Carrie. He read it. He was moved by it and decided to come in and sing on the record. So that day came. We were all prepared. Billy Smiley was just giddy. He was nervous. It was just like, oh my gosh, he's going to get to produce a Johnny Cash vocal, And so we're all there, and Johnny arrives just by himself. He drove himself to the studio, no entourage or anything or management, just him. And he walks in. Of course, he's all dressed in black, as he always was. And so we're talking with him, shaking his hand, and he told us he'd just come from the hospital where his mother was basically on her deathbed, and the different members of the family were taking turns being with her, because she was so ill. And we were just like, oh my gosh, well, why are you here, man? Don't you need to get back and be by her side? He goes, oh, no, I need to do this. He said, this is therapy for me. He says, I need this, We're like, oh, great. Okay. So we all stood around in a circle, held hands, and prayed with Johnny and prayed for his mother. And it was just a powerful time, So when he got behind the mic, put the headphones on, we were all in the booth, glassed off from him, but we could see him. And we played him the song for the first time. And he's just kind of bobbing his head, and listening to what we did, And then afterwards he said, hey, I like what you guys did to my song, all this. We're just like, woohoo. Because me especially, because I did the arrangement on it, So anyway, so he did the thing. We did the back and forth thing where Carrie's vocal was on there and then cut out for Johnny to do his thing. And it worked great. And at the end, when we were all done, I had this idea, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if the song started out with just dry with him saying, hello, I'm Johnny Cash. And then it just slammed in, the song would slam in. So we said to him, would you please give us one of your, hello, I'm Johnny Cash. And he did it. And his voice sounded so freaking cool, when he said that. And it was like, oh, I can't believe it. So anyway, and we got a picture with him and everything. And then later on in the parking lot when he was leaving, he sprayed us with silly string, and yeah, it was awesome. It was great. So anyway, so cool. Yeah, we were hoping after that somehow maybe we could do a video with them together of the song, or maybe, we pushed it because the song and the album was nominated for a Dove Award that year. And so we were hoping that maybe they would let, Murr was pushing for them to let the Pig and Johnny appear on there and sing this song, but in the end, the Dove people did not go for that, So we never got to do it live with them. We never got to do a video or any other promotion. We never saw them again after that,
Wow.
So anyway, that was it. That's the Johnny story,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a great moment, though.
Amazing. It's surreal. I mean, it's hard to believe. And of course, anytime that Johnny Cash comes up, or I hear his music, or see a T-shirt with him on it, or whatever, any mention of Johnny, I just think to myself, yep, I recorded with that dude. It's like, wow, it's incredible, so cool. Unreal. Yeah.
Well, and then once, and that was, until recently, was that the last thing that the Pig did for a while? That was that album.
Quite a while. That was our last full-length original studio album. Now, in the summer of '91, as you know, you were there. We recorded live "Blow the House Down" at Cornerstone.
Oh yeah,
and that came out on CD and on VHS. You know, there wasn't DVD at the time, so it was VHS tape. And so that came out in '92. And then a couple of years later, there was this label, Diadem, I think it was, that wanted to do. Billy, you know, had talked to them. He was talking to different labels about doing a best of, you know, because he had access to master tapes of, you know, different things. And so that's when we did the quintessential One Bad Pig album, which is just a best of album, you know. And so anyway, yeah, we didn't, you know, the band just kind of went their separate ways. Actually, at the end of '91, I moved to Nashville and tried to get a solo thing going. And I actually did an album in 1996 called "Touch the Ground."
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because that was a huge departure from One Bad Pig. I mean, it was more kind of soulful pop. And then also working with Des Dickerson was probably a neat experience.
Well, yeah. And so I've always, you know, like I say, but way back in '85, when the Pig started that day at Labor Day Christian Music Festival, as I say, I had my own band, the Paul Q-Pek Band, which obviously I was the lead singer of. And we kept going. The Paul Q-Pek Band kept going for 3 or 4 years there, right alongside the Pig. You know, the Pig, I'd do gigs with them where I'd play guitar and sing background vocals and run around with all this punk and metal stuff. And then I do the Paul Q-Pek Band stuff, which was still Christian, but it had a more kind of Tears for Fears sound and, you know, kind of that '80s pop new wave kind of thing. And so I'd always wanted to try to do the solo artist thing. So when I moved to Nashville and started making connections up there and doing demos and kind of zeroing in on the sound that I wanted to do and this and that. I had done a couple of demos and I was going to a church. I mean, any church you go to in Nashville, there are industry people that go there. There are musicians. There are, you know, just, you know, all kinds of people that are involved with the CCM industry. Or at least there definitely was at that time, you know. And so Des Dickerson, who was the guitarist with Prince and the Revolution, he's in the Little Red Corvette video and the 1999 video. He's the black guy with the Japanese bandana on. He's playing guitar. You know, that's Des. And well, Des had become a Christian, and back in the first time I met him was at a Pig gig because he brought the Pig in. He at the time lived up in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And so we played a concert up there probably in 1990 or so, 89 or 90. He was a youth director at a church up there, and he brought us in to play for his kids, you know. So that's when we first met him. And so I kind of got reacquainted with him then again in Nashville years later, because he was going to my church. He was an elder at the church I was going to. And so when I had and he also at the time was an A&R guy at Star Song Records. And so A&R guys, that's who you want to get your tape to, you know. And so I had done a couple of tunes, demoed up a couple of songs, and I was going for a real kind of Peter Gabriel vibe, definitely on that tip. And so I gave him the songs and he got it. He thought, yeah, this is cool. I like this. He said, but these tunes are a little far out, little artsy fartsy. He says, I'm going to give you access to our demo studio here at Star Song, songwriting studio, you know. Get in there. I want you to do a couple of songs, record a couple of songs that you think are your version of radio, your version of what your stuff would be for radio. I said, okay. So got in there, did a couple of songs, and he liked them both, but he especially liked one of them. And so he said, okay, I like this one, and I like this one from your demo you gave me. It says I need one more before I can kind of present you to the label, you know. And so went into another studio, did another tune, and so three of the songs that ended up being on my album were the songs that he presented to Star Song. And that was a song called Phileo, a song called Bring Jesus to Me, and a song called If I Were President. And he played those for the other A&R people there, and they were not 100% on board. They thought, I don't know. So it kind of was dead in the water, you know. So then a couple of things happened. One is that my wife and I decided we were going to go full on biblical with this. And at nighttime, we went to Star Song Records. Nobody was there. And we went there and we prayed and walked around the building, Star Song, 7 times. Hoping for a wall of Jericho moment here. And so we did that. And then also, it just so happened that I got to do special music at my church one Sunday, and I did Bring Jesus to Me. And I did it with the worship musicians, which were all Nashville studio musicians. You know, they're all incredible. And we did Bring Jesus to Me live. And it happened that day, the president of Star Song was in the congregation. I think his name was Stan Mosier. And he was in the congregation. And so he heard me do that. I didn't know he was there, you know. So afterwards, apparently, he talked to Dez. And he said, Dez, have you been talking to this guy? Not knowing that Dez had been working with me for a year, you know. And got a rejection, you know. But Stan had not heard of me. The president said, have you been talking to this guy? Anyway, after that moment, everything was greenlit at Star Song. I remember getting a contract mailed to me, you know, for 7 albums for Star Song, you know. This big long contract. I didn't sign it, but a big long contract, you know. So the day I got the contract in the mail, Des called me and said, hey, let's go do lunch. I said, okay. Went and did lunch with him. He said, I know they sent you a contract, he said, but I just want you to know that I'm leaving Star Song. And it felt like I got hit in the gut. This was the guy that I'd worked with for a year, massaging my demos, working on new stuff, having him present it, you know, the whole deal. And he was my champion. He was the one who got it. You know, the other A&R guys didn't get what I did. He got it. And so he was going to be my guy there. And now he was telling me he was leaving. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? He said, but I want you to know, he said, you can still sign with Star Song. He said, someone else will be your A&R person, you know, whatever. You could still do records there. He said, I'm leaving because I'm starting my own label. It's going to be called Absolute Records. And he said, and I'd love for you to be our flagship artist, you know, our first artist that I signed. He said, but pray about it, think about it. So then I was like, this thing I'd hoped and dreamed for and even marched around and prayed for, you know, it happened. And here I was thinking, oh, I may not do this, you know. So my wife and I prayed about it and decided to go with Dez, go with the guy who believed in me, and go with Absolute Records, you know. So that is how that happened. And the Touch the Ground album ended up coming out in 96. And then it all fell apart. It was about a year there where it was great, you know, after the record came out. But but then, and I won't go into it because it's some personal stuff with me and Des. We're still Facebook friends. We're still good acquaintances, but things really got weird and blew up. And I'll tell you one story, he'll tell you another, and it's like, hey, it just so happened then that we had to part ways, So I only it was very tough, and it was painful, real painful time. And so I ended up only doing the one record, and I never signed a deal for a solo album after that. It just didn't really present itself, and for time it didn't appeal to me. And so anyway, it ended up in the year 2000. I ended up moving from Nashville, and I actually moved back to where I was born, back to Vallejo, and to the church I was raised in. And I became the worship leader and the youth director at this small Baptist church that I grew up in. Yeah. And that kind of started me on a path of worship leading, which I ended up being worship leader at different churches there and in Texas and in Florida here for about 17 or 18 years there.
When you were a youth pastor, did you wear the pig pants? Did you wear the pig pants?
No, not really. No.
Was that part of the deal? Like you can be the youth leader, but that would have been my deal. If I had been the head pastor, I'd been like, we want you as a youth pastor, but here's the deal. You have to wear the pig pants.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
At least once a week.
Uh-huh. Well, remember, I wasn't the one who wore the pig pants.
I know.
There was a drummer, so I didn't have those.
So what are you doing now? So what's going on now? You do anything musically now?
Well,
worship music or whatever.
Right. Well, as I say, I had been doing worship and leading worship at churches right up until this past December. After the Christmas season, something in me just said, you know what? Need to take a break from this. I was a bit burnt out, and didn't have the exact great perfect situation. And so I thought, I need to do something else, And so I haven't done worship the last year or so. I have a full-time job at the Magic Candle Company. That's my day gig. I'm pouring candles. Sweet. And whatever. And and so, and then my side gig is I've lived in Orlando now for 6 years and kind of gotten involved with the community of people here, entertainers, singers, musicians. There's a lot of us here in town that play at lounges and restaurants and theme parks and things like that. There's just tons of call for that here because it's such an entertainment and lots of visitors that come, and it's just a vacation mecca, with Walt Disney World and everything else we got going on. And so there's just a lot of opportunities out there. And so right now I'm, just playing acoustic guitar and singing old songs I love mostly from the 80s, and it's all secular pop and rock stuff from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that stuff. And I, sing in a lot of different places in town. And people that follow me on Facebook, know that because I put that out every once in a while. And, and it's kind of feast or famine. Some months I'm only got 3 or 4 gigs, and some months I'm doing 10 or 12, but with a full-time job, that's definitely enough,
Yeah, right.
It's a lot. And so anyway, and I love it. I'm loving it. And the dream as a musician is to be able to do it full time, and there have been different pockets and different times in my life where I've had that. especially with worship leading. There's been several churches where I was the full-time worship leader. That was my only job, And so, but now, I don't mind doing the Magic Candle Company thing, and it's great, and it's nice to have health insurance. And a lot of musicians don't have health insurance, so that's wonderful. So I don't mind that, and then getting to play and exercise my musical things still, is a lot of fun. So that's what I'm up to. That's what I'm doing.
Nice. And how can people find you? You have a website, or is it just on Facebook? Like, what you got that people can find?
Yeah, mainly it's Facebook. It's Facebook, and I haven't really, gotten on other social medias like Twitter or Instagram or whatever, TikTok. I'm just on Facebook. And the funny thing about Facebook, there is a One Bad Pig site on Facebook, so you can look that up. But my personal one, it was funny because for a while I had the name Paul, like I spelled it with my solo album and with the pig, Q-Pek, Paul Q-Pek. And that's not the real way I spell my name. My name is Q-Pek, but it's spelled Ciupek. It's a Polish name, but pronounced Q-Pek. But I started spelling it phonetically because when people see Ciupek written down, they don't know how to say it. And so, but Facebook pulled my card. They basically said I can't use the name Q-Pek. I have to use my real name, Ciupek. I've tried several times to get them to see reason on that. They won't. And so I have to be my real spelling of my name. So it's weird. So every once in a while, I'll get people that ask me, hey, are you Paul? And then Q-Pek, are you Paul Q-Pek? I said, yes. So anyway, but after I joined Facebook years ago, on your personal Facebook page, they let you have up to 5,000 followers. And then you can't have any more, or friends, 5,000 friends. And then you can't have any more. It cuts you off, And I quickly made it up to 5,000, not because I knew all these people, but because they were Pig fans or, fans of the solo album or something, but mostly Pig fans. They knew me from the Pig. And I was just accepting friends right and left. I was just like, hey, man, love your music. Oh, great. Bing, And I quickly got up to my limit. So anyway, I wait for people to drop off now, and then I can add more friends.
Yeah, I was one of those early 5,000, and
that's right.
Like I told you,
yes,
like I told you beforehand, it's like I feel like I know you, but we've never met.
Right. Well, next time you're in Orlando, and I get this quite a bit, I get people saying, "Hey, we're going to be in Orlando for our Disney vacation. We'd love to meet you," or blah blah blah. This type of thing. Because everybody comes to Orlando.
Okay, so I'm coming to the Orlando area in about middle of October.
Cool.
I want to come, and can we do Isaiah 6 together? Can we? I don't know where you're going to be, but come on.
Gosh, oh Lord.
That is literally one of my favorite songs ever.
I know.
Hard pass.
It is an incredible song.
Hard pass, he says.
I'm going to say no, because the people would be bewildered. It would be very, they'd be going,
a Man in Black. We could do Man in Black, right? I mean, that's at least. It's
but definitely look me up. I've got 10 gigs scheduled for October, so I'll be around.
Well, I have always thought that someone, I'm not saying you, but I've always thought that someone should do a punk album of country hits, because I think every country song could be a punk song, because it's all simple chords.
Sure.
And it's just speed it up and just go for it. But that's just my bucket list item one day, maybe.
Well, they in the 80s and early 90s, there were some bands that did kind of almost a Southern flavored alternative, and they called it cowpunk, I think, for a time. Yeah. The style, cowpunk. So anyway,
that would have worked for One Bad Pig. Bacon and all the stuff. That's pretty country.
Yes. Yeah,
pig punk.
So wow, we didn't talk about Bunch of Believers or Lust Control.
I know, and I have it all in my notes, but it's like I did so.
It's all good.
But I did want to touch on one thing though. It's like you guys released an album, "I Love You to Death," which came out like 6 years ago, and which was incredible.
Was it that long? No. Yeah,
it was, I guess 2016.
Right. You're right. Yeah, because I was still in Austin at the time, right before I moved to Orlando, and I've been here 6 years. So
it doesn't feel that long.
6 years.
Ago,
wow, time has flown. Oh my gosh. So, we decided to get together and do a Kickstarter thing, not with a label, just do our own thing. And the fans were gracious. We didn't know what would happen, but they not only came through on that, but did enough to do the stretch goal where we put it out on vinyl also. And man, it was cool. We got to do a few gigs. We did the Austin release of it, and then we played at Audio Feed that summer. And then awesome. A year later, we got an invite from a Christian metal festival of all things in Sweden. And we went to Sweden and played. Yeah. So that was the last thing we did. Yeah.
Well, we love you guys. And,
yes.
It's like, and I talked about this on the last episode about how when Smash came out, of course, I was senior in high school, going into college. That was about the time frame.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where it came out of nowhere and it came out of left field, and it kind of took over the youth at our church. And so we had this kid named Frank in our youth group, and poor kid, because we always let's be Frank.
Let's be Frank. Yes. Wow.
But so it was really, and then of course going into the other albums. But at that point I was in college and I was putting away childish. I'm just kidding. No, we love those old albums, and of course I blasted them on the radio. So it's been very cool being able to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah,
you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Look him up on Facebook. Click follow or whatever it is you're supposed to do whenever you've got 5,000 friends.
Yep, you can still follow. I guess I don't know how it all works, but hey.
Yeah, you can follow, and then for the One Bad Pig page, that too, so they can check you guys out.
Yep.
Well, thank you, man.
Cool.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Paul, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. So tune in then.
Wonderful, guys. I enjoyed it. Thank you.